So I just want to introduce Dr. Jan McDonald, Jane McDonald. Jane is a conservation scientist at the Threatened Species Operations Team in the Queensland Department of Environment, Science and Innovation. And in her current role, and in partnership with CSIRO, she manages the development and delivery of the Threatened Species Prioritised Framework Program. And Jane will be discussing this program and how it advances threatened species prioritisation in the state. Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Bob. Sorry, I'm just going to have to do a quick swap. So I'm going to attempt a live demonstration of our online tool, which is always a recipe for disaster. So hold on to your hats. Sorry, Simon, does this have to... Oh, you got it. Thank you very much. You guys see that? So thanks again for the opportunity to come and speak to you today about Queensland's work on threatened species prioritisation. This is just the list of co-authors on this particular talk. There would be a much longer list of collaborators, which I'll show you later, but just the general gist of it is an extremely collaborative project with lots and lots of people that have contributed a lot. But in particular, Josie Carwardine from CSIRO is our co-lead on this project. So I just wanted to, firstly acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander connection to country and continuing custodianship of the animals and plants. We're going to go through a quick background on why we're doing threatened species prioritisation in Queensland, but just a note that from here on in, I'll be talking about experts and knowledge and data, and just to qualify that that's essentially Western knowledge and Western science. So this project hasn't incorporated kind of cultural knowledge into our prioritisation process specifically, but we're hoping it gets incorporated in that kind of broader decision framework. So I just wanted to note that as something that the tool itself and what I'm showing you doesn't do specifically. But in terms of prioritisation, in Queensland, we were probably the first state, it wasn't me, there was other people, to do prioritisation. So that was pretty hard to do it first, and we've learnt a lot along the way, and hopefully our current work reflects those learnings. I know a lot of other states are doing species prioritisation, and the feds are as well. So we're not alone, there's a lot of people doing it. So the first version that we did was called Back on Track, you might have heard of it. As I think Tegan mentioned, Queensland had an audit on its progress on conserving threatened species, which was a pretty interesting read, and it was a really good opportunity to reflect on what we're doing well and what we weren't doing well. And that document highlighted the fact that we lacked a really good system to prioritise our recovery efforts. So we did have a system back on track, and it just, for various reasons, it wasn't really implemented or it wasn't uptaken very well. And I'll get into a little bit of how we're doing things differently this time. So in 2020, we had a threatened species program developed and released, and one of the key actions in that was to develop a threatened species prioritisation framework so that we can identify those priorities for investment and actions. And in 2021, we started this project, and as I said, it's being co-developed with our colleagues over at CSIRO. And in last year, we released a decision support tool internally in DESI. So we call it, at the moment, it's called the Threatened Species Prioritisation Decision Support Tool, but we're planning on changing that name very soon because it's terrible. And we're hoping that by the end of this year, or maybe very early next year, that the tool we've developed will be externally available for everybody to use. So just quickly, just to review again, a big collaborative project, the two main teams that are running it are CSIRO and DESI, but we've got lots of other people involved. We've had an expert prioritisation group, so Jen and Hugh and lots of other people have been guiding us on best practice in this space. We've had an internal DESI governance group to make sure that we're actually meeting the needs of our users. And lots and lots and lots of ecological experts have input into this project and will continue to input into this project going forward. Especially lots of plant people and especially people like you. So anyone that's helped or will be helping in the future, really appreciate it. It makes a massive difference to our ability to prioritise, especially threatened plants going forward. So just quickly, I'm going to try and open the tool and show you how it's done, which might be the interesting part, but just a bit of a background, just a summary of what it actually is. So it's a threatened species prioritisation framework, and that includes this decision support tool. So that's an interactive space where you can go and try and work out your own priorities. That's underpinned by a big database, and so the tool allows you to access that database. And the database has information, any information that's available on our over 1,000 threatened species here in Queensland. And kind of wrapping all of that up together is a kind of framework on how to use that tool. So I guess our first kind of warning is you don't just open it up, use it, get a list, walk away, and you're done and dusted. Obviously, you have to think about the tool and what it gives you in the context of your decision making, where you are, who the people you are that you're trying to work with, all of those other things. All of this information is available essentially through the tool as well. So this is just to reflect on what we've done differently. So unlike the Back on Track and other versions of prioritisation, there will be no single list that it generates and that everyone has to work to. This is the feedback we got on the processes we've done before, is that people want something that's flexible. So we don't want to just a list and then we all have to abide by the same thing. People were keen to see that it's transparent. So how do we come up with the numbers? What is the data? Where is the data from that supports these priority decisions? And defensible, obviously we want it to be based on best available information and adaptable to these different situations and easy to use and understand. So this is, so we've created our online kind of tool, and it's underpinned by this big database. But underpinning it all again is both our users. So our users within DESI have been really helping us design what the tool looks like, but also you guys and other people have really input into the database. So it's really based on a lot of huge amount of work from people. So some of the examples of data in the database that you can access through the tool, some basic stuff like species name, common name, whether it's a plant, whether it's an animal, whether it's aquatic, whether it's terrestrial, but also how threatened it is. Also, things like, does it have a recovery plan available, where it is, what its threats are, what its actions, the recovery actions are. And the kind of, I suppose the big point of difference is that we've generated some, prioritisation parameters. So how cost effective is it to recover that species? How feasible is it to recover that species? And if you were to recover that species, how many other species would benefit? So that's trying to really allow people to assess, should this species be a priority for us? So some of the questions that we might be able to ask, I've tried to make these plant-based questions, but some of the kind of questions you can ask is, so which plant is vulnerable or most vulnerable but actually feasible to recover, or which plants, sorry. And you can ask questions around threats and location. So for example, which plants are impacted by fire in, say, Cape York. You can also almost inverse interrogate the database to find out what information we don't have. So that might inform areas that you might want to pursue in terms of research or surveys. And also, as I said, around that co-benefits metric, the management of which species will actually help us manage a whole bunch of other species. So that's kind of looking at cost effectiveness from a slightly different angle. Okay, so here goes nothing. Actually, I might just do this a separate way. Maybe not. Can I change the screen that that is displaying? I'm looking at it now, is that all right? Oh, sorry.
PowerPoint takes over. So we'll just have to...
I can open it if that's hard. you open the tool, this is the landing page. It's very pretty. And this is exactly very close, except for the silly name will be changed for what you might be able to see when you access it later on in the year. Lots and lots of instructional videos on how to do it. We're trying to make it as like inbuilt as possible, so you don't need to keep emailing us asking how to use it. But for the purposes of today, I'll just go through a few examples. So we'll just go straight into the tool. And so the premise of the tool is that we're starting with a really, really long list of species. So in Queensland, over 1,000, and there's a few extra ones in here for good measure because we've included all the EPBC listed ones as well. So the premise of the tool is that you've got this long list. What do you do now? So the tool helps you basically reduce that list and turn it into a much shorter list that might be actually manageable. So the way that you do that is that we basically allow you to set your own criteria on what you want to choose. So you just go to this set my criteria, and in this criteria panel, a little bit like Airbnb or something, you get to choose and set things that you're interested in. So for this example, let's just assume we don't care about birds or mammals or anything, and we can select land plants. So you'll see that immediately your shortlist has gone from all of them just down to your plants. And the tool kind of, then you get rid of that. And basically, yeah, you've got a whole bunch of information that you can kind of panel through here around it's the threats and location, threats and actions, the location, things like that. But on your front page here, this big table here is basically your list of 821 species, which is obviously a bit unmanageable, but it gives you all the information on its cost effectiveness, its feasibility, and its co-benefits. And we give you some nice little summary information, like what proportion of those are under the different threat categories. This one, if we didn't choose land plants, would give you the taxonomic distribution of your shortlist. And you also get a nice little summary of how your shortlist is doing compared to maybe other shortlists, so you can save them and kind of compare them. 2 minutes, thank you. So I'll just run through a few little examples. So we can probably want to get our 821 down. But for example, if we wanted to go, okay, we also care about critically endangered and endangered plants. So then again, our list has gone down again. We can also panel across to say threats and actions. And so here is a summary of all of the threats and actions that face those species. And you can download big tables with all of that information in it, including all of the source information for where we got that data from. Another example is you might be interested in, I think I said space. So we might want to go in and look at the critically endangered plants in the Brigalow belt, and so you can just, again, your number goes down. But also, just importantly, we have our prioritisation parameters, so how cost effective, feasible, and how many co-benefited species there are, so you can manipulate those to change your list. So in this example, maybe we'll go for we want to really look at what species are really feasible to recover. So we go back into our list and we've got 260 species here, and there they are in your main table. And yeah, you can do normal Excel things like sort by these ones to see which are the most cost effective or feasible. I guess the problem is there is probably no perfect species here. There's always trades off, and that depends on what you're particularly interested in. So that is the, I won't go back to my presentation, but because that's probably a pain, isn't it? But basically that's the tool. Oh, I am back there. Oh, that's good. And these are all just a tiny snippet of the millions of people who have been involved. Again, the acknowledgement list is super, super long, and it's going to get longer because as this tool keeps going, we're just going to keep updating the information, so keep on needing to connect to people and the information that you guys have, especially as you're doing all of those surveys that I think are going to happen. And if you are interested or want to contact me or talk more about it or get more information, here's our email and my email, and very happy to talk to anyone about it. Thank you.
Probably got time for one question, folks. Liz?
Yes, thanks for that, Jane. It's Liz Bourne from the Stanthorpe Rare Wildflower Consortium. What are you going to do about plants that are very poorly understood and certainly poorly surveyed? I'm thinking, for example, our slender donkey orchid, and over the years we may have seen 50 on the granite belt, and I think it's currently listed as vulnerable. We haven't got the capacity to do the work to get it uplisted based on the work we did on the Dalveen Blue Box and the Black Grevillea. It's just getting beyond us to spend years of our life getting it uplisted. But I suspect if it was surveyed properly, then it'd probably end up in the endangered or critically endangered category. So under this system, it may not appear, but we could certainly tell you some of the species in our area, and there's probably 10 that are either not listed at all or just listed as vulnerable, that if more work was done, they'd go right up the priority list. So how are you going to overcome that?
Yeah, thank you. Brilliant question. And I wish I hadn't pulled my computer out now, because one of the things that we had a philosophy on when we were doing this project is not to leave behind anything just because we didn't know about it. So when anytime you use that tool, even if it doesn't have enough information, it's always on your list, because unless we can prove that it shouldn't be on there, it's on there. And then we have some other functions, like we have a data limited tab. So if you're trying to look at, say, in that example, threatened plants in the Brigalow belt, you'll always have a list of what might be on your list, but we didn't have enough information. So we've actually tried really hard to highlight that, and the tool can be used to highlight species that we actually don't have enough information on, and potentially we should be investing in either surveys or actual research to find out what's going on. So I guess I don't know what to do about the investing in surveys part, but we have tried really hard that not to hide or diminish species just because we don't know enough about them in the actual tool itself. Thanks for the question. It was a good one.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Liz. Sounds like a role for the network.